The sun dipped low over the turquoise waters of Fiji as Christe Chen stepped off the small boat onto the pristine shores of Turtle Island. At 36, the Memphis pharmacist had imagined this moment countless times, a private honeymoon with her new husband, Bradley Robert Dawson, a celebration of love and the start of a new life together. Everything seemed perfect. Turtle Island, with its secluded beaches and luxurious villas, promised a retreat far from the world's eyes. Friends and family had marveled at their whirlwind romance and joyous wedding, convinced that Christe and Bradley were destined for happiness. Christe, known for her warmth, compassion, and dedication as a pharmacist, was the picture of contentment. Yet beneath the smiles and champagne toasts, subtle tensions lingered between her and Bradley, small cracks in a relationship no one outside their private world could see. What was meant to be the honeymoon of a lifetime would soon reveal a darkness neither of them could have anticipated. The couple arrived at Turtle Island Resort in Fiji in early July 2022, and they were excited about their time away from the stresses of daily life. They were staying in a private beachfront villa where they had planned to enjoy the tranquil surroundings and spend time together. However, their honeymoon would take a dark and tragic turn in the days that followed. On the evening of 8 July 2022, resort staff noted that the couple seemed to be having a heated argument in their villa. The argument, which was reportedly audible to other guests staying nearby, involved an emotional confrontation between Christe and Bradley. According to some reports, the argument escalated into a physical altercation, though the exact nature of the dispute remains unclear. Resort staff, concerned about the loud noises, attempted to check on the couple, but they were unable to get a response from the villa. As the night wore on, the situation seemed to calm, and the couple was not seen until the following morning. The next morning, on 9 July 2022, Christe and Bradley missed breakfast at the resort, which was unusual for the newlyweds. Resort staff became increasingly concerned and decided to check on them. They knocked on the door of the villa but received no response. After waiting for some time, they decided to enter the room and check for any issues. Upon entering, they discovered a horrific scene. Christe was found lifeless in the villa, having suffered severe blunt force trauma to her head. There was evidence of a violent struggle, and her injuries were consistent with an intentional attack. Christe's body was found in a state that suggested she had been murdered in cold blood. She was lying on the floor, and it was clear that she had been brutally assaulted. The staff immediately alerted the local authorities, and the police began their investigation. However, they quickly discovered that Bradley was missing. He had fled the scene, and no one knew where he had gone. This would soon become a key part of the case. As news of Christe's murder spread, local authorities and the Fiji police launched an extensive investigation. Bradley was the primary suspect in the case, and it was clear that the circumstances surrounding his disappearance were highly suspicious. The police began looking for Bradley, fearing that he might have fled the country in an attempt to evade justice. Investigators discovered that Bradley had indeed left the resort the night of the murder. He had taken a kayak and paddled to a nearby island. He was found on the island with his passport, personal belongings, and other items that indicated he had planned to leave the country. This discovery was a clear indication that Bradley had been attempting to escape, possibly even before Christe's body had been discovered. Bradley was eventually located and arrested by the Fiji police. He was brought back to the main island, where he was charged with the murder of his wife. Those newlywed murder allegations. The Tennessee man is in custody. Authorities say he killed his new wife while they were on vacation in Fiji. His attempt to flee and his suspicious behavior raised further questions about his involvement in Christe's death. Authorities also began to uncover details about Bradley's background, which would reveal troubling information about his character.
I fell madly in love, and it was definitely intense and fast.
But she claims Dawson could sometimes be jealous and controlling, and that on one occasion he pushed her.
When I really did want to leave him, he did push me down once on the bed and chased me. He was very verbally manipulative and threatening and jealous.
Bradley Dawson was a former high school teacher who had worked in various teaching positions over the years. He had been married before, but that marriage ended in divorce, and it was reported that Bradley had a history of volatile relationships. While there was no definitive proof of abuse or violence in his previous marriages, friends and family described him as someone with a temper. Some even described him as controlling, particularly in his relationship with Christe. It was also revealed that Bradley had been struggling financially and had significant debts at the time of Christe's murder. The couple had recently invested a substantial amount of money in their wedding and honeymoon, and it was suspected that Bradley might have been under financial pressure. Some believe that he may have been motivated by financial gain or the desire to escape a relationship he no longer wanted to be in. While there was no direct evidence pointing to a financial motive for the murder, investigators speculated that Bradley's need for control, combined with his financial stress, may have played a role in his decision to kill Christe. Whether it was a spontaneous act of violence during an argument or a premeditated murder, it became clear that Bradley had played a pivotal role in Christe's tragic death. Bradley Dawson's trial for the murder of his wife, Christe Chen, began in December 2024 at Lautoka High Court in Fiji. The prosecution built a strong case against Bradley, focusing on his attempt to flee the country and his suspicious behavior after the murder. They emphasized the brutal nature of the crime, highlighting how Christe had been struck multiple times in a deliberate and violent manner. Gravely and Bradley Dawson, the prosecution acknowledges the unusual and violent manner. Gravely in Bradley Dawson, they argued that her death was not an accident but a premeditated act of violence. The defense, however, offered a different perspective. They claimed Christe's death resulted from an unfortunate domestic dispute that escalated beyond control. They argued that while the argument had become physical, Bradley did not intend to kill his wife. According to the defense, the confrontation had spiraled out of control, but there was no evidence to suggest Bradley had planned the murder in advance. The prosecution presented key testimonies from resort guests who had overheard the couple arguing the night before Christe's death. These testimonies, combined with evidence that Bradley had fled the scene, strongly suggested that the murder was premeditated. Additionally, the fact that Bradley had attempted to escape the country made it clear he was attempting to avoid responsibility for his actions. The prosecution also highlighted Bradley's history of controlling behavior and volatile relationships, adding further weight to their case. In response, the defense tried to downplay the severity of the argument, suggesting that while it had become physical, it was not a pre-planned act. However, the court was unconvinced by these arguments, given the overwhelming evidence pointing toward premeditation. The brutal nature of Christe's injuries and the circumstances surrounding Bradley's flight painted a clear picture of guilt. After several days of deliberations, the jury returned a verdict of guilty. Bradley Dawson was convicted of first-degree murder for killing his wife, Christe Chen. The verdict was met with mixed reactions from the public. While many felt relief that justice had been served for Christe, others struggled to comprehend how a man could commit such a heinous act, especially in what should have been the happiest period of their lives. The case quickly became a cautionary tale about domestic violence and the hidden dangers that can exist even in seemingly perfect relationships. It revealed how controlling and abusive behavior can escalate with devastating consequences, leaving a lasting impact on loved ones and the wider community. For Christe's family and friends, the loss of a vibrant woman with her whole life ahead of her was incomprehensible. Their grief and anger over the senselessness of the crime were profound. Her family, who had always described Christe as selfless and caring, were left struggling to cope with the tragedy. Her mother, in particular, faced the unimaginable pain of losing her daughter. Because of the severity of her injuries, Christe's body could not be transported back to the United States for a traditional funeral. Her family made the heartbreaking decision to have her cremated in Fiji, a decision that underscored the tragic circumstances surrounding her death. Christe's
Share
story
your
has
thoughts
sparked
and
broader
experiences in the
conversations
comments
about the
below.
warning
Your
signs
voice
of
could help
abusive
raise awareness and
relationships,
save lives.
the importance of addressing financial and emotional pressures, and the urgent need for support systems for victims before it's too late. Her story is a sobering reminder that domestic violence can happen to anyone, no matter how perfect a relationship may appear. What do you think could have been done to prevent this tragedy? Have you or someone you know ever witnessed warning signs like these? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice could help raise awareness and save lives.